All right, welcome back in. It's the third hour of kind of the Clay Edwards Show, but we're calling it the Whole Story Health Hour with Allison Nooe. She has a business called Whole Story Health. And Allison, welcome into the Matt Kike of Flowwood Studios. How you doing today?
I am ready for the sun to be back out, but glad to be here.
So we both were talking. We're both kind of on the struggle bus a little today.
Yeah.
Kind of woke up around 3 o'clock and couldn't really get back to sleep. I did a lot of tossing and turning. I'm just sore this morning. But I took some vitamins and I drank my little banana bag supplement that I take whenever I don't feel good. And man, it was like back to 100. I don't want to say 100%, but I'm better than I was when this party got started at 7 a.m.
Yeah, I'm glad you had that. That's one of the first things that I did this morning was I don't have the banana bag, but I have some electrolytes that kind of saved my life. And it's part of my morning routine anyway, because sleep is so dehydrating. But I know when I haven't had a good night's sleep that it's super important.
Rewind. You said sleep is dehydrating. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about that.
So, well, number one, it's the longest period of time that we go without taking in some form of liquid. Hopefully, most of us are drinking water throughout the day, but some form of liquid usually we have going on. And then there's a lot of repair processes going on in our body while we sleep. And water is that vehicle that carries a lot of our physiology around. So a lot of it's getting used up, to put it in layman's terms. And so, we wake up naturally a little bit dehydrated. So one of the first things I recommend doing when you wake up is go grab you 16 ounces of water.
Yeah, I keep a couple bottled waters by the bed.
Yeah, that's great.
And if I had to get up, use the bathroom or anything, I'll down about a half of one every, or a whole one, just depending on how I feel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it makes perfect sense that it is a dehydrating. I have noticed here lately that I'm waking up with cotton mouth more and more. I don't know what exactly that's a symptom of.
Well, you may be a mouth breather at night. So actually, I've started doing this. Have you heard of mouth tape?
No.
Okay, so there is some wild research that shows the impact that breathing through our mouth has on our brain. It slows us down. And I have been a mouth breather for a long time. I remember, I was thinking about this the other day. I remember I was in like first or second grade and I was working on a project with a kid and he goes, "Oh, girl, shut your mouth." Because I was breathing out of my mouth.
Well, when I'm doing cardio and stuff specifically, years and years ago, I trained myself to only breathe through my nose.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. That's great training. And at night, a lot of us just naturally, because now our mouths have been so invaded, we've gotten braces to make our mouths smaller. And, 200 years ago, our mouths were much wider and flatter, and that promotes better respiration. And we've messed all that up for aesthetic purposes. And so a lot of us now naturally breathe through our mouths at night. And so they have this mouth tape you can use, and you put it on your mouth, and it is safe. I've done it. And I used to have like a chronic stuffy nose and I don't anymore. So it's made a world of difference, and I don't wake up dry mouth now. So
that's interesting. I had to give that a whirl there because I've just noticed here over the last month that I'm just kind of waking up with dry mouth a little bit more. And they say it can have something to do with like your blood pressure too, I assume.
That I'm not sure of, but that's interesting. I'll look into that.
So just food for thought there.
Yeah.
All right, so today you were listening to the show this morning, and a lot of stressful things going on in the world. People kind of on edge, whether it's, the people who have taken the vaccine, for example, and are seeing people drop dead. They got to be stressed out a little bit, wondering, could something happen to me? Or you have this tension with police in urban communities and people being worried. Just in general, we're all more stressed out. We've got our phones. They cause a lot of stress. Waiting on tech. It's always anxiety and stress. So today's show, you're going to talk about helping natural ways to relieve stress?
Yeah. So I want to explain what stress is in the body. And it is a good thing if we can train ourselves to think of a stress response as a gift, right? We were given this. It's a biological response. It's like this internal alarm system. So go back to how we are primitive beings still biologically, right? So when these hits of cortisol happen, or, you feel that stress in your body, there are these things happening to help you stay alive, because back in the day that meant there was a predator near, or there's natural disasters. Maybe there's somebody unsafe. And so it's valuable and necessary. But we live in a world now where we are chronically stressed. And you just brought up our phones. This is one of the leading causes of stress. We are so addicted to them. And that is not our fault. You know, all these apps on our phones, they've been studied to bring us back to them over and over and over again, to give us just enough of a hit of dopamine to have us going back. So, but we also feel like we have to respond to everybody immediately. And that's just not true. So chronic stress, can cause all sorts of health issues. So it can make us hyper vulnerable to chronic disease. It can take us into insulin resistance. And this is huge. If you think about where we are with prediabetes and diabetes now, as a state especially, and a nation, cortisol and insulin do this dance. So when we have elevated cortisol because we are in a constant state of fight or flight or stress, we are inevitably going to raise insulin levels. So it damages our cells. So there's some really interesting research, if y'all like to hop on PubMed, that looks at how shift workers and other people who have pretty high stress jobs, they have less mitochondrial function. You know, mitochondria are what power our cells. It can lead to strokes. It definitely leads to weight gain, and that fat that is resistant to being burned, and brain fog or inability to focus. And that's huge right now. I hear everybody talking about, the running joke is, you're in your 30s or 40s if you walk into a room and forget why you were there.
No, I mean, just go get some Adderall.
Don't get me started on Adderall. But yeah, that has nothing to do with your age, that forgetfulness. That is probably a lot more linked to where your stress levels are at. Are you sleeping? What's your nutrition look like?
Well, the brain fog thing, you mentioned that. That was one of the first things I noticed that got lifted when my body got into ketosis and stuff, is you're in a fog and you don't even realize you're in a fog. Once you start burning ketones and all that stuff and you really get into that, the clear-mindedness, it's like taking a magic pill.
Yeah.
For focus.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you drop sugars. I noticed, I got to think about something yesterday. I'm over a year without a Coke or sweet tea or any sweetener in my drink.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, I still have a few beers here and there, but as far as like daily consumption of sodas and anything like that, over a year, man, I just feel better. My body's not inflamed. I don't have that fog. Sorry, you mentioned the brain fog, and it's got me going down a rabbit hole here.
Well, it's so connected. I think that's a great point. These sugary drinks, the inflammation in the brain that those things cause. I mean, the glucose spike, if you were to wear a glucose monitor and watch your glucose spike after drinking sugar, like that, it's insane. And we have a blood sugar regulation system. But we have something very similar in the brain. So there is a sugar and insulin response in the brain too, which we can become resistant to, which will definitely cause fogginess. We're not firing on all cylinders when your brain is having to fight off this inflammation and these high glucose spikes in your brain. And they say, well, your brain runs mostly off of sugar. Well, we don't need that much. There's a tipping point, obviously. And actually the brain runs much better off of fat. It is primarily made up of fat. So like you said, going a little more of that carnivore keto, as far as brain fog, that's huge. That's a really good.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'd seen that on videos and stuff, and I heard Mike talk about it, Madison, and, it was one of the first, especially doing this and having to do research and come on here every day and talk. I noticed that I was clicking on all cylinders more often. And I don't think I'm in ketosis right now. I should be here in the next day or two. But I'm looking forward to being able to compare today to, say, Thursday.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's quick, too. I mean, once you get into ketosis, it's on.
Yeah.
It's a noticeable difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are ways to stay focused if you're not in ketosis. So for the ladies out there, it's not advantageous for us to do keto too long, especially if we are still cycling. So I can talk to you about that one-on-one, but, you do need to up your healthy carbohydrate intake, during certain phases of your cycle. But keto in general is great if you already have insulin resistance. I think it's advantageous for men and women. And then men really do well on more of that carnivore ketogenic diet, a little bit more long term too. So, and it's all, Mike and I talked about this. You have to try what works for you. And, if you need a little help from a coach or professional, then seek that out. But there's so much information out there on these types of nutrition plans. So, try and see what feels good.
Yeah. I ran into a friend of mine's wife Saturday night, and she's lost a lot of weight. I mean, she was never a big girl anyway, but she's lost a lot of weight. And I asked her what she was doing, and I just assume anybody who's lost a lot of weight is in ketosis of some sort. And she's intermittent fasting and said she's eating whatever she wants. Now, she's not a big meat eater. But I'd always understood that when you're intermittent fasting, you really, really wanted to avoid that the meal coming off the fast or breaking the fast with a high carb meal, because those carbs can count for up to 10 times more in your body. And so it's like if it's got 10 grams of carbs, it could be like your body getting 100 grams of carbs. In different studies, it's shown that. So anyway, I say all that to say, obviously that's not the case for her. She's been doing the intermittent fasting and kind of eating what she wants, and she's probably lost 20 pounds. Yeah.
A lot of that has to do with, her physiology, her biology. You're right. It is better to layer, maybe start with your vegetables, then bring in your protein and fat, then your carbs, so you can give your body that buffer so that glucose spike isn't near as high. And I did talk about this on Mike's show. I don't think I've talked about it on yours, but, since we're on this subject, one of the best ways to structure your meal so that you can have carbohydrates every now and then, like, bread or sweet potato or something, you want to go for a whole food source. But then there's sometimes where you just want to have some carbs, go for it. But if you will eat your vegetables first, then your protein and fat, and then your carbohydrate, you can actually reduce your glucose spike up to 70%. And that's huge.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And is that just coming off a fast, or is that just when you eat
in
period?
General? Yep. So think about when you go out to eat, they hand you that bread first. We always tell them don't leave it at our table, because my mom and I cannot not eat it if it's there. But if you want to have the bread, then have your salad first and eat it with your meal instead, or have dessert. Prioritize. So just thinking about, you don't have to always restrict or abstain or live so tight and stressed out that you can't breathe, but just applying a few simple rules to your nutrition life, you can have a little bit more flexibility and freedom. Unless you're in a place where you are fighting diabetes, then we need to be a little bit more strict for a while, because we need to eradicate that disease from your body. And you can do that.
Let's do this. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll get back on track here, and we'll talk about ways to relieve stress.
Sounds great.
And this is the Clay Edwards Show, Whole Story Health Hour with Allison Nooe. We'll be right back on 103.9 WYAB and WYAB.com. Necessary. Welcome back into the Clay Edwards Show. It's our Whole Story Health Hour with Allison Nooe. And this segment is going to be brought to you by A1 Gear and Auto, located right there on Highway 49 South in Florence. Your check engine light on, they got you. You need AC work, they got you. You'll find out on a morning like today if you need AC work or not. It was muggy out there this morning. But look, what they really specialize in is your ring and pinion, gears, rear end work, all that stuff. Get out there and see them if you're having any issues, or if you've upgraded wheels and tires, make sure you got the right ring and pinion in there, and they'll get you taken care of. That's A1 Gear and Auto, located right there on Highway 49 South in Florence. If you're going south on 49, pass through Richland, and it's right there on the left. Almost right across the street from Tractor Supply, just down the road a little bit. So easy to find. Tell Justin and the team that Clay Edwards sent you. All right. Joined in the Mac Hike and Flowood studios this morning with Allison Nooe. We're doing our Whole Story Health Hour. And Allison, one of the things we were going to discuss today, and we're going to go down some rabbit holes on this show too. And I love talking about the diet side of things and just how that affects your body and all that stuff. So I'm easily lured down that. But I love the the natural stress relief stuff, because this is something we can all use.
Yeah, for sure. And diet is so connected too. So anytime that comes up, it's fantastic because it's such a huge part of why our body is registering so much stress. If we're, eating a diet high in processed foods, that's very stressful on the body. I
wish I could articulate to people how easy it is to eat right. Because it's one of those fake myths that it's expensive, it's hard. It's not.
No, it's not.
It just isn't. I mean, we all make the time to do the things that we want to do. And if you want it bad enough, you can do it. I mean, I know I say this all the time. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah, and it is tough, I think, because there's so many different quote unquote plans and ways to do it, that I think people are in a sense of overwhelm. And I think where people really struggle to eat well is because we've been sold the lie that we need to eat less and move more. And so women and men are restricting their calories and eating, 1,200 calories of processed food, which leaves you hungry, and it starts this whole physiological response that's an uphill battle.
You hear the word processed foods get thrown around a lot. Let's get simplification here. What is a processed food?
Well, if it's got a list of ingredients, it's not a whole food, right? So, when I say a whole food, predominantly whole food based diet, you want to think of vegetables, meat, fruits. There are some grains that you can incorporate if you're not struggling with gluten sensitivities. But if you look at a processed diet, like if you're going on a diet and the majority of your foods are packed in salt, like these lean cuisines, those are terrible for you. I
was looking at my ex-wife left some lean cuisines in the freezer, and I just happened to pull one out the other day to see what the carb count on it was. I was like, I meant to make a post about this yesterday and just didn't do it. It was like 40 grams of carbs or something crazy in a lean cuisine. I'm like, there's nothing lean about this except the little amount of food it is.
Right. So you're restricting the amount, but you're not getting quality nutrients to your body. You're going to feel like crap. You're always going to be hungry. So we have the two, there's the hunger hormone, which is ghrelin, and the satiety hormone, which is leptin. And those get really out of whack when we are eating a few calories that are coming from these processed foods, because your body knows they're called food. But the FDA allows this stuff to be called food because it won't kill you instantaneously. But don't be fooled. This food is killing you. Quote unquote food, right? So, look at the ingredients. If you want to know if it's whole food sourced, because I do use some products that are, prepackaged, pre-made stuff. Siete is a great, brand if you want like a Mexican flavored dinner. Primal Kitchen is one of my favorites because they make some sauces and salad dressings. And if you look at the ingredients, you will recognize everything on the ingredients list, and you'll see, oh, that's an actual food. That's an actual food. That's a spice. And so take a bottle of Primal Kitchen salad dressing and put it up next to Hidden Valley and look at the ingredients in Hidden Valley. First of all, you're going to be astonished at how much sugar is added to that. And then just crap. You don't even know what is this, Yeah. If you can't recognize, half or more of the ingredients, then I would say that's nowhere close. That's nowhere close to a whole food.
And if it sounds like a chemical name.
Yes. And we have taken food that once came from nature and destroying it and adding all of these chemicals into it and make these faux foods. Why don't we just use the stuff that came from nature? And here's another uphill battle. People don't know how to cook it. They don't know how to prepare vegetables and meat. So it does take a little bit of practice and research. But if you Google like delicious Whole30 recipes, or I did this yesterday, healthy crock pot recipes. And I mean, I'm not the best cook by any means, but I enjoy learning new ways to eat well. And it really isn't hard, but you have to try and just think, how much of my diet can I have whole food sourced?
Yeah. I got a crock pot for Christmas. I lost mine in the divorce. My grandmother got me a new one. And I love to do some crock pot meals.
Yeah.
And then there's some good healthy ones. And then what's great about the crock pot meals, you can freeze them in a freezer bag, pull them out, do a little boiling bag type deal. They're ready. And they're good and healthy, but they can be good and healthy. Like anything, you can make unhealthy versions of it. So
yeah. And speaking of, crock-pot meals make a lot, and so for single people like us, a good way to reduce stress, if we're going to talk about this, is to get in community, get off these fake communities. Listen, I'm just as guilty of being on Facebook. That's where I do the majority of my business, but it heightens our stress, right? But being in community with actual humans actually helps lower cortisol because it increases oxytocin. Oxytocin is that neurotransmitter that you get when you pet a dog, kiss a baby, or have a conversation with someone that you're really enjoying. And so if you make a crock pot meal and it's a lot of food, invite somebody over, take it, I need to be better at taking some to my dad's house and visiting with him. So, just thinking of ways. Health is so multifaceted, and so it's not just about food, although food definitely plays a huge part.
Well, I think, a lot of us are overweight in the South, and I just use the South as an example because that's where we live, is food is about socializing, down here. Like we cook for any social event.
Yes.
And hell, we do it for funerals.
Yes.
Like where's the wake at? So we can all go back and eat. And like food is centered around everything we do.
It is. And I'm glad you brought that up because I got super isolated at one point in my life because I stopped going to things because there was always food that I quote unquote could not have. Right. So there's this, balance of eating well, but also being a part of community. So now I'm either going to bring my own food, or I will partake in the food that's being offered there, or I will bring a healthy dish. And when you cook a healthy dish and it tastes good, and then the people there are like, oh, really? That's healthy? How'd you make that? And share the recipe. You can have an impact on those around you just by living a healthy lifestyle.
Not this Friday or not this Monday, but the Monday leading into the Super Bowl, we ought to do a show about healthy foods to take to the Super Bowl party.
That's a fantastic idea. In fact, anybody that's listening, if you are like crunchy granola, like people call me, or you enjoy cooking healthy, y'all hit Clay up or send me a message on Facebook and share some of your favorite recipes. This is what we need to do because this is where it gets fun, right? We're sharing healthy recipes. I made a buffalo chicken dip one time that surprised the heck out of me. Like I said, I'm not the best cook, but it was healthy. It was keto friendly, I think, and it was delicious.
Awesome. I tell you what, let's take a break. This is the Clay Edwards Show. It's our Whole Story Health Hour with Allison Nooe. We're just hitting a lot this morning. I think you still got some home remedies for stress relief, right?
Yeah, but we could talk about that all day, every day. So we'll see where it goes. And if anybody has a question, send it in. Yeah.
Also, phone line 601-879-0002. The Guns and Gear text line 769-241-1944. See, we've got some text here. I'll read them if they make sense on the other side of the break. We'll be right back on 103.9 WYAB. Breaking rules when necessary. Welcome on back into the Clay Edwards Show. We're live here in the Mac Hike of Flowwood Studios for our weekly Whole Story Health Hour with Allison Nooe. And guys, y'all been sending us some really good text here. I just reviewed them with the co-host this morning, and I think we're going to hit a couple of them. Shelly texts in and says, tell her that we do want to know what she thinks about Adderall. These people need to hear it. And then she says, and this is a great motto here, this is very true, and I forget to mention it some when we talk about health. When you go to the grocery store, avoid the middle and shop around the outskirts. That's where the meats are. That's where the vegetables are. That's where the fruit is, all that stuff. All them things in those freezers and coolers, anything that comes in a box is usually going to be bad for you.
Yeah. I will say, with the exception of like flash frozen vegetables, they freeze them so quickly after picking them that they do maintain most of their nutrient value.
I use those. I like the fajita blend for everything.
And then with that, again, always look at the ingredients. Make sure they didn't add that nasty canola oil or, a bunch of junk to it. But as long as it's just the fruit or the vegetable, you should be good. But that's great, Shelley. Yeah. Shop in the perimeter of the grocery store.
You just hit on something. Oils. This is so important.
Yes.
I use two, a good olive oil and a coconut oil.
Yep.
Is there pretty much avoid everything else?
extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil.
Yeah.
Although now, because this is just the way that things work now, that the Dave Aspreys and people of that world are saying that most avocado oil, the integrity of that oil has been compromised through adding other stuff in. So again, look and make sure that it is just avocado oil in the ingredients. And then, like a good grass-fed butter, and Vital Farms and Kerrygold are both grass-fed butters that you can get at Kroger.
Tell me the names of those butters again.
Kerrygold and then Vital Farms.
Because I've just been using butter for my bulletproof coffee, and I know I really just the El Cheapo butter I can get at the grocery store.
Yeah,
I know I need to be probably doing a better, more organic butter, and I've kind of dodged that.
Yeah. Well, and there also can be overwhelm with making sure that you're avoiding toxins at all levels, and that can cause more stress, too. So doing what you can where you can. I will throw a lot of things out there just to get people thinking and let you know that you do have options. And then when you can, make, one or two small changes at a time.
There's the paralysis by analysis, right?
Yes.
Sometimes I like going to somewhere like Costco, for instance, because it's just easier. There's not as many options. And, okay, I got to pick two. Between two, I can do that.
Yeah.
But if you give me 50, I'm not going to buy anything.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So another text we got in on the Guns and Gear text line says, has she looked into the research that suggests Alzheimer's is a type 3 diabetes and the strong sugar link to it?
Yeah. So they are, Alzheimer's is now touted as type 3 diabetes, and there is a huge correlation to that brain sugar and insulin response that I was talking about. Another huge contributing factor to Alzheimer's is lack of good sleep. So, but yes, that is something to take very seriously. If you look at why Alzheimer's is so prevalent now, and you look at the standard American diet, you'll find your answer.
I saw a funny meme relating to the good sleep thing the other day. It said it had a picture of a guy and a girl both in separate beds looking at their phone. It said, remember that person you used to stay up to 3 a.m. talking to on the phone? Where are they now? You could have just gotten your sleep.
Yeah.
I thought that was good.
Yeah. Back to Shelley though, with the Adderall thing. People that know me know that I don't appreciate Adderall because it was one of my drugs of choice back in the day. I didn't need it. I didn't have ADD. I just abused it. But I do think that doctors prescribe it left, right, and center. And I think it's a very dangerous drug. It is speed.
I had a conversation with a family member about it last night. And
Yeah.
It's like everybody that I know that got strung out on meth at some point started with Adderall.
Yeah. And it's very easy to get. I mean, when I wanted it, I just asked my doctor for it. And in the very same sentence, I said, now what am I going to take to go to sleep? And he wrote me a prescription for Xanax. So it's,
one to go down, one to come up.
Exactly. How bad is that for your heart? But here's the thing. Kids don't need to be controlled by medication. They are kids. They need to move more. And we've taken that out of school curriculums. They need to be able to express their creativity and get their brains firing in different cylinders. And we've taken a lot of that out of school curriculums. And then undeniably, we can't avoid the conversation of what food is doing. All of the kids' food, quote unquote, kids' food, is highly processed, filled with sugars and all of these dyes. And those are directly linked to these behavioral disorders.
Well, there's so many great documentaries out there about food and the upside, what sugar's doing to you, what processed food, and even what like grain-fed meat is. It's really just not that good for you. Mm-hmm. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's better than processed foods, obviously, but there's a lot of really good stuff out there. Joe Rogan had some people on from the grass-fed beef industry not too long ago, and they got a documentary that came out. I don't know the name off the top of my head. I'm kind of winging it here, but I'll start bringing some of those to the table too.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of really good information out there. You just gotta make time to believe it. I'm just gonna tell you, no matter what, you can be overwhelmed with your diet. You can be like, well, there's all this, there's all that. If you'll just cut as much sugar out of it as you can, I mean, get used to reading the ingredient list.
Yes.
The nutritional thing.
Yeah. And
carbohydrate is a fancy word for sugar.
Yeah.
And if it's got more than 2 or 3 grams of carbs per serving, you don't need it.
Well, and look at in that same line where it lists that, look at sugar and added sugar.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference. If you get a thing of tomato paste, and it's going to have natural sugars in it because of the tomato, but look at the added sugar, and they'll add sugar to everything because it sells more. So yeah, I mean, I can't emphasize that enough. That's a great point, Clay. You have to read ingredients labels and look at nutrition facts. And as far as the Adderall thing, when I hear of, high school athletes, this was pre-COVID. Okay. So high school athletes passing out, dropping dead on the football field. My first question is, I want to see what medicines they were prescribed to, because what these stimulants do to your heart, and then you're out and we're in Mississippi and you're doing 2-a-days and full pads or whatever
dehydrated.
Dehydrated, and drinking that nasty Gatorade to hydrate. I mean, I guess it's better than nothing, but it's full of sugar, and if you've got elevated heart rate, like it's a recipe for disaster. When, yes, mamas and daddies, it takes some work, but start cleaning up your diet and you will find it easier to clean up your kids' diet. It sucks that they're already addicted to all these gushers and whatever these kids' foods are. I may be dating myself. I don't even know if they still make gushers, but it will take a little bit of work. But the pain that you will save yourself and them down the road as these behavioral disorders start to magically disappear. Oh, it is. Talk to any mom who has changed their kids' diet and watch things like ADD, ADHD, and autism go away.
I've heard that about the autism of, moving over to a keto carnivore diet. I've watched, there's enough documentaries out there. I've watched it change lives. Like Dr. Jordan Peterson's daughter, she had all kind of major health issues and was doubled. I don't know. Anyway, she had major pain. I mean, she was considering assisted suicide at one point.
Yeah.
And she got on a carnivore diet, and all of her stuff got cleared up. And there's a lot of studies that show about it being linked to autism. I'm telling you, if I'm lucky that I don't have young kids in the house and there's not all that sugar stuff around and this, that, and the other. But if I was to have a child today with what I know now, it would be interesting to raise them and to feed them right. All those parents we used to kind of make fun of, those granola parents and helicopter parents. They may have been onto something.
Yeah.
Because they had this information before the internet. Like, my kid ain't eating that. My kid ain't eating that. Oh, well, your kid's going to let your kid have some fun.
Yeah.
Man, you know what? I mean, there's an argument to be made that if you can prevent the sugar addiction before it ever happens.
Absolutely.
At a young age, like, I'll go back to the Coca-Cola thing or soft drinks. I don't want to just pick on Coke. They're all bad.
Yeah.
Mountain Dews, Dr. Peppers, Dr. Cola, whatever. If you can, and sweet tea, we dump sugar into perfectly good tea here, and it's great. Don't get me wrong. I love sweet tea. But if you can avoid, just cut that out of your life, you'll be mind-boggled at how healthy it is. And these energy drinks, these Red Bulls and Monsters and all this stuff. I know there are sugar-free versions, and that's the one you need to go with if you insist on drinking those things. But that is not a healthy option.
Yeah.
There's so much out there. It's easy to just drink bottled water. And, okay, speaking on bottled water real quick. I meant to ask this earlier. I got one in my hand here, and it made me think. I drink about a gallon of water a day. Do I need to be adding some electrolytes into my water?
I would, yeah, because you are eating a whole foods diet, which means that you have drastically cut the amount of sodium that you're taking in, right? Mm-hmm. And then you also are drinking a fair amount of water. So you want to make sure that your electrolytes, that all these electrical currents in your bodies are firing at good levels. So yeah.
So okay, I'm 270 pounds. How much sodium? Let's say pink sea salt. How much should I take in a day? Because I put about a tablespoon or a teaspoon worth in my bulletproof coffee every morning.
There probably is no magic number. If there is, I'm not familiar with it. But what I would say is go off of how you feel. So maybe if you increase this a little bit, will you not wake up with the dry mouth? Look at your energy levels. That's one of the first things. Also, recovery from your workouts. So stable energy all throughout the day. Good sleep, recovery from your workout. That should be a good indication of if you are staying well hydrated.
So just go by one of the supplement stores or Walgreens or wherever and get a box of the little packs of electrolytes to dump in my water.
Okay. So they're like everything, there are good and bad. You can just do a little Redmond's sea salt or pink salt in your water. That's fine. Or add it to your meal. That's totally fine. I love Element, LMNT. You order those online. They're a little bit pricey, but their flavors are really good. The trick is you need to look for an electrolyte source that doesn't have added sugar. And so most of the
flavored ones are going to have added sugar.
Yeah. And Element has some great flavored ones and they don't have added sugar, but Liquid IV, they went from having no sugar to now they have, I think, 14 grams of sugar per little packet. It's so annoying. So,
well, like the Energy packs, the little orange Energy, the vitamin.
Oh, Emergency?
Yeah. Is that what it is? I'm sorry. Emergency. I got some of them last year when I was sick and I got to looking at how many carbs they had in it. I'm like, well, dang, this is not accomplishing what I needed to accomplish.
Were the carbs from sugar?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not
Probably because
sure.
I think those are a little bit sweet, but I haven't looked at the ingredients in those. So yeah, just check. And, again, you may pay a little bit more for the better quality stuff, or you can just add salt to your food.
So just add some, easy and try to stick with the sea salts and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I wanted to circle back to, when we're talking about feeding kids well.
Hey, I tell you, hold that thought.
Okay.
Come back. We'll land the plane with it on the other side of this break. This is the Whole Story Health Hour with Allison Nooe and Clay Edwards. We'll be right back after this break. Breaking rules when necessary. Welcome back into the Clay Edwards Show. This is our Whole Story Health Hour with Allison Nooe. Allison, you got about 3 minutes. I'm going to let you land the plane here. You dropped off at talking about kids eating.
Yeah, so I have a real issue with fit shaming. There's such a thing as fat shaming, but there's just as much a thing as being shamed for wanting to be healthy and well. And so,
like people love to do CrossFitters.
Yeah. I mean, there are. You pick a lane and you're going to get some slack for it. It doesn't matter. But if you are trying your best to help set your child up well to live healthy, you just have to tune everybody else out, because what I believe it boils down to, those who are critical of those parents who enjoy working out and eating healthy and their kids enjoy it too. When I was in Oxford, I heard a story of a mom just getting ridiculed by some other moms because she loved to run and her son wanted like a Fitbit tracker for Christmas, and they were saying that's unhealthy, just criticizing. And you are passing on your health habits to your children, and those that are critical of that, usually it's because they haven't looked within themselves to see that they're just not ready to make those changes. And so don't listen to all the noise. Do what you feel is best for your family. And you are your child's health advocate. You are your own health advocate. And until your children are out there making their own decisions, you are theirs as well. And so it's your responsibility.
Yep. Allison, great show. I think we're really getting our footing here. I knew we would have great chemistry, and not surprised at all. I thought today was great. We got a bunch of we had some off-air calls too, some questions that were asked of her, and I thought those went great. I appreciate everybody tuning in. If you want to find Allison, go to Facebook and type in.
Yeah, Allison Lee Nooe, L-E-A. Last name's Nooe, or Instagram. It's at Allison Health Coach Nooe, or shoot me an email if you are looking for a health coach. It's wholestoryhealth@gmail.com, and we'll get back to some of the stress stuff next week too.
Cool. And does Whole Story Health have a Facebook page?
Yes, it does.
Just Whole Story Health?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it should be a picture of you there. All right, look, this podcast will be available here shortly. Jameson Haygood is coming up next for 2 hours. Welcome back to the 2-hour time slot there, Jameson. And I will see you all tomorrow right here on 103.9 WYAB for 3 hours tomorrow, 7 to 10 a.m. The Clay Edwards Show podcast will be available shortly, clayedwardshow.com and all major podcasting platforms. Stay safe. Peace.
Thanks for listening. Tune in tomorrow at 7 a.m. as the Clay Edwards Show discusses all that is going on in and around the city of Jackson.
This concludes our broadcast day.
Right here on 103.9 WYAB.